Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, desolators, peasants, vassals, geisha girls. I'm Useful Idiot. Today I want to talk about Japan's military. And I started wondering more about what Japan's military capabilities really were because of recent tensions between China and Japan, and certainly involving other countries in the region as well. And then on top of that, we have the new Japanese government, which I did a video on the election of this government several months back, and noted that Japan seemed to be going down a dark path, re-embracing nuclear power and going into a massive money printing scheme, but also moving to readdress the Japanese Constitution, which the United States wrote for them at the end of World War II, but prohibited them from having a military per se, and certainly not offensive capabilities. But a closer look at what the Japanese military has right now was pretty fascinating, and I hope others will find this as interesting as I did, because as it turns out, Japan is actually a latent global military power, and certainly has the framework to expand rapidly their military should they need to, or should the Constitution get changed. Of course, it would be a good game changer for them economically as well, to start spending lots of money on a bigger military machine. That's always good for the economy, isn't it? But anyway, let's get to the facts. This Japanese Defense Force, or military, was created in 1954. And at the end of World War II, General MacArthur of the United States basically set up a domestic Japanese police force to help and keep order and reconstruction of the devastated Japan at the end of the war. But by 1954, and the Cold War was in full swing, and the conflict in Korea was in full swing, and so MacArthur geared the Japanese more towards a larger self-defense capability. And since then, they have grown quite a bit. So it turns out they spend $56 billion annually on their military. It's the same as Germany, and about half of what China spends on its military. So I found that rather surprising. They're the fifth or sixth largest military budget in the world, and at certain junctures in recent history, they've actually been the fourth largest military budget in the world. But it does disguise the fact that the Japanese soldiers are the highest paid in the world, and also the fact that they have a very large officer class. In fact, there's a little difference between the number of officers and the number of enlisted. And I would suggest the reason for this is that should they need to rapidly expand, they will already have a large officer class in place, and all they need to do is expand the ranks of the enlisted part of the military. Right now they have about 280,000 people in their military, 145,000 regular combat troops, and 14,000 in reserve. So this makes them a pretty formidable military force in spite of just their so-called defensive capability. And when you look at their the breakdown of their different departments, it gets even more interesting. So we have a military that has one armored division, one airborne brigade, a helicopter brigade, and a counterterrorism unit. But they also have 900 heavy battle tanks and 900 heavy artillery pieces. So that's pretty substantial. I was kind of shocked by the numbers. And then their Navy actually has the most powerful Navy. Japan has the most powerful Navy in Asia after the United States, which was also a surprising figure. 16 submarines, 170 combat aircraft, 50 destroyers, and they have 760,000 water mines available. And then their Air Force also has a substantial presence, 300 combat aircraft, and the United States keeps them well armed as well as providing for their defense. But they also have big plans. They're already setting things in gear. They have a rapid mobilization blueprints. There was a Tokyo earthquake tomorrow. They can have 70,000 troops mobilized and in place in 3 days. So they're definitely set to expand should they need to, and expand rapidly. And over the next few years, they're going to continue working on a $10 billion missile shield system. And of course, the United States has Patriot missiles deployed all over the nation. And it's recently decided to start producing its own long-range missiles as well, which will be an easy transition for them. The technology is already in place that they use for satellites, but they could switch this over to a war capacity or a high production military capacity pretty quickly, just as in their nuclear program. It is said that Japan could probably construct a nuclear bomb within weeks if they needed to. So they are a much more formidable military presence than a lot of people suspect, and that's why I wanted to do this video. So let's keep a further eye out on tensions between China and Japan, and an age-old rivalry that is worthy of a video in itself, as well as the fact that we now have the Japanese government moving in a radical right-wing direction, including the possibility of changing their constitution to encompass a military that can certainly work with the United States in international hotspots. And I would suggest this is probably an inevitable move, particularly as the United States foreign policy pivots towards Asia and the containment of China. The idea of having a much more heavily armed and offensive capability Japan is certainly in U.S. foreign policy interest. But that said, an interesting bottom line to finish with is the fact that in 70 years since the end of World War II, not one Japanese soldier has been killed, and not one Japanese soldier has killed anyone else. But if the historical forces continue to press forward right now, that will change quickly. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.